today I want to take a little break from our normal episodes and talk about a few things. If you've been following these videos for a while, thank you very much. But that means you probably know that we just spent roughly 4 months roaming around Southeast Asia, and it was great. But you may not know that we're actually back in the States now, and we've been here for a couple of weeks. We did have to leave Cambodia a little bit unexpectedly and sooner than we'd hoped. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. If you've been following these videos for a while, then you probably know we've been traveling for about 4.5 years, a little longer than that. And because of that, there's 3 questions that come up repeatedly. The first is, after 4.5 years of traveling, how are we able to do this? The second is, how long is it going to last? And the third is, where are we going next? First question is sort of difficult to answer in a short time frame, but I'm going to do my best. But I will say that I'm actually working on something that'll get into a little bit more detail in all of this and get into our actual costs to see the world, but I'm still working on that. So as far as how we did it and how we're able to keep doing it is, it's not a short answer, but basically, in a nutshell, Brenda and I, in our mid-20s, we wanted to see the world, but we had nothing. That's us when we first started out. That's like 20 years ago now. So we came up with a long-term plan that would get us out there. Brenda was a hospital social worker. I was in construction, neither of which were very lucrative careers. But that didn't stop us from really wanting to get out there and see the world. We already lived aboard a sailboat, so for us, the most feasible way to see the world was by sailing around the world. But at the same time, we didn't want to wait to normal retirement age to be off seeing the world. We wanted to do it while we were young enough and able to do the types of things we knew we would want to do. And so for us, the only way we knew how to do that was to make a long-term goal with an end date that would be our departure. We were in our mid-20s and decided that at 40, we'd still be young enough and able enough to really get out there and do the things we wanted to do. So that gave us roughly a 15-year time frame to save, plan, scheme, work on the boat, and leave. So at the beginning, we estimated that we could sail the world for about $1,500 a month. Like I said before, I'm working on something that'll get into a little more detail about our planning and our actual costs of traveling, but having a number to work for was at least a start. For people just starting out with nothing, trying to save up enough money for a long-term adventure seemed daunting. But just crunching simple math, that meant that if we could save $100 a month over the course of 15 years, that would give us a year off on a big hiatus. If we were able to save $200 a month, that would give us 2 years, $300 a month, 3 years. You get the idea. We knew we wanted to do more than just a year. Hopefully 2 to 5 years was what we were really thinking. We thought we could get around the world in 5 years. But that meant that really over the course of 15 years, we would need to save about $500 a month, which seemed pretty tough when we had nothing and we were just getting by. But that end goal of seeing the world for a long-term basis is what we really wanted. And even though we left as a couple of people trying to sail around the world, we quickly became a couple of people trying to see everything the world had to offer. So for about 10 of those 15 years, I had 2 jobs, just trying to get us to the point where we could do this long term. So I guess my point really is this wasn't some willy-nilly thing that just we took on lightly. It was a lot of years of work, a lot of years of saving and planning, and that got us out here. And I guess that brings us to question number 2. How long is this gonna last? That's another one that's pretty tough to answer. We don't really know. From the very get-go, the goal was always to travel as long as we could. And whatever that was, whether it was 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, as long as we could make it work, that's really what we wanted to do. It's not gonna last forever. We don't know when it's gonna end. And at this point, we are gonna enjoy it and soak it in for as long as it lasts. But we've got at least a few more years in us. The theory from the get-go was that we would do it until the money ran out, we'd go back to work, and that'd be that. We really always thought that the big adventure now was a trade for our retirement in the future. We could always work when we're older, but we'd never get our youth back. So that was the trade-off we thought was worth it. And that means that really down the line, we'll probably be working till our foot's in the grave. We'll probably be living in a cardboard box and eating cat food out of a paper bag. But to me, having this big adventure now, it's gonna be totally worth it. You know, I guess there's another thing I just want to say also, that there's been a number of times throughout this adventure we've been on where I had these sort of fleeting thoughts that maybe we should have stayed and worked a little longer and saved a little more money for a cushion and just done a normal type of retirement thing. But the longer we're out here and the more we're able to see and do, the more it reinforces the fact that for us, leaving while we are young to have this big adventure was the right decision. What's going on, Brenda?
Got a fish. Got a mahi-mahi. Look at that. Hit the gas.
The simple fact that we've been able to get out and see and experience the world in what we consider to be the prime of our lives is something we don't take for granted. And because we're able to do it with a partner that we care deeply about, that makes it all the much better. Nice job. And I guess that brings us to question number 3. What's next? That's another one that's a little bit hard to answer to at the moment. I don't want to talk about this too much, and I'm really not looking for sympathy, but while we were in Cambodia, I had a bit of a medical emergency that sprung up on me. I've always considered myself a pretty healthy guy, but while we were there, I had some trouble. I had to pay a small visit to a Cambodian hospital, which was surprisingly less enjoyable than you might think. So we decided it was a good idea to leave. It took about 48 hours on a series of tuk-tuks, buses, and planes. But once we got back to the States, I had my gallbladder taken out, and now I'm on the upswing. And here we are today. But beyond all that, because we're back in the States now, and I'm in a bit of recovery mode, we're stuck here for a month or 2. So these videos may be put on hold for a bit. That's the way it goes. But I do have a few episodes that I will try to get out of our time in Cambodia just because I think it's worth sharing. It was an amazing country. But after that, they'll just be on hold until we get back to the boat. And I guess that's my point to what's happening next. We're still planning on getting back to the boat and sailing again. And we'd like to do it as soon as possible. But at the moment, we're stuck for a little bit. But once we start moving again, I'll let you know. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll see you soon.